Hello, hujambo, bonjour, habari gani, and welcome to the first ever Making Global Goals Local Business Africa event. It is my pleasure and I'm truly honored to be with you today. My name is Yvonne Okwara and I will be your host for the day. And what a day we have planned for you. And the theme for today is Uniting Business for the Africa We Want, Decade of Action and Opportunities. And the reason we're calling that is we're on the brink of that very important decade towards trying to fulfill that pledge that the world made towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have 10 years to go to the year 2030, and this is a very, very critical discussion to be having at this time. And we're focusing on the African continent that is teeming with opportunities, particularly the young population. In fact, it's estimated that by 2030, young Africans are expected to make up about 42% of the world's youth. And so, as you can see, Africa is truly the next frontier. And what we would like to begin today is to put in place some building blocks that'll make sure that these young people are able to step into and run responsible and sustainable businesses. And so throughout the day today, you're going to hear from governments on how they are fostering multi-stakeholder partnerships. You'll hear from business executives, you'll hear from young people, leaders of civil society on just some of their actions towards achieving those global goals. And most importantly, you will get to hear about seeking local solutions towards global challenges. Now, we're living in a great challenge, as you know, with the global COVID-19 pandemic, and under different circumstances, we would all be meeting physically in one space. However, that is not the case, but the important conversations must continue. And so what we have tried to do here is to make this event as great an experience as it would be if we were all together. And that's why we'll try to make it easier for you to connect with each other. So first of all, a couple of points for you to note. We would like you to share any outtakes, any feedback, any good things that you're hearing from this out there on social media. Please use the hashtag Global Goals Local Business. And if you want to chat and network directly, which is what is one of the key things about this forum, you can do so. There is the left tab on your screen. You can link up directly with both sponsors as well as all the attendees. We have over 2,000 registered, many of you joining us from across the continent, such as South Africa, Kenya, Cameroon, Morocco, Egypt, and the US as well. So you get the opportunity to network, you can visit the booths that are there, and you can also get information on all of the plenary sessions we'll be having today, as well as the breakout sessions. Remember, you can visit the sponsors' booths, you can engage with them directly. And so all of this has been put together thanks to some hard work by the organizers and thankfully to the sponsors as well. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you very much to our host, the United Nations Global Compact, together with the local networks, South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mauritius, and the Indian Ocean, Nigeria, Tanzania, and of course, Morocco. Now we have 69 Global Compact local networks, and we have 10 here in Africa. And that's why we're very excited about the first regional network, that's Mauritius and Indian Ocean. We truly believe that this is a new innovation for the global compacts. And these networks, like we say, are very important in moving forward the issue of corporate sustainability and driving action towards those global goals, which we hope to do by the year 2030. Partnerships are also important. And so we say thank you to our UN partners. That is the UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNICEF, ILO, IOE, and UNIDO. Asanteni sana. Thank you. Merci. And finally, a big thank you to our sponsors, Bank of Africa, Abinbev, Project Management Institute, Africa Media Agency. Thank you very much to you, our sponsors. This wouldn't be possible without all of you. Now, we are looking forward to this. We have a poll that's running up and we're asking you what you are most looking forward to today. We have over half of you saying you're looking forward to the inspiring plenary sessions, and they will be great, I guarantee that. And then we have many of you also looking out for the engaging breakouts, and you're clearly very excited about exploring the content studios. Please continue to tell us what you are looking forward to most. And don't forget to share all of this. Global Goals Local Business is the hashtag we're using on social media. I'll be tracking that, and I'll be making sure that I'm telling you what everybody else is saying, so we can continue to share, network, and learn all through the day today. All right. So it's time for us to get into our first session of the day, and I'd like to introduce our first speakers. So you're going to get to hear today from the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Ms. Amina Mohammed, on her vision for Africa 2050. If you don't already know, Ms. Amina Mohammed is a big champion for education, social services, climate change, poverty reduction, and has been very instrumental in shaping the implementation of SDGs around the world, and indeed on the continent as well. You will get to hear from her in a moment. But first, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our host, the CEO and Executive Director of the United Nations Global Compact, Ms. Sandra Ojiambo. Sandra, over to you.
Excellencies, business leaders, and friends. I would like to begin by thanking my colleagues at the United Nations Global Compact networks in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, and the Indian Ocean region, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, and Tanzania. All of you have been key players in organizing this event. On a personal note, as an African and a Kenyan, let me also say how proud I am that businesses on our continent have come together to support communities in need during the COVID-19 pandemic. Across Africa, the private sector and governments are working together to defeat the coronavirus. In many countries, they've made progress based on strong leadership. Their success has been anchored in public-private partnerships, early action, community mobilization, and preparedness from past lessons learned. We must make sure that this spirit of solidarity is not lost as we enter further waves of the pandemic and as we move beyond COVID-19. But for now, we must continue to grapple with the global crisis. The pandemic has disrupted our export markets and supply chains. It has forced our economies into lockdowns. As African governments confront this new reality, they do not have unlimited resources to support distressed businesses and the unemployed. And that is why the response of many African businesses has been so inspiring. Soon after the outbreak of COVID-19, companies around the continent teamed up to assist their communities with emergency medical supplies, personal protective equipment, rapid testing kits, and other vital goods and services. They accomplished it all through an impressive mix of innovation, partnership, and collaboration. African science and industry have proven that they can deliver local solutions for local needs. Their resourcefulness and self-reliance will stand us in good stead for this decade of action on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and for the success of Agenda 2063. But perhaps the most important lesson we have learned from the pandemic is that companies are only as healthy and as sustainable as the communities that they serve. Businesses have to develop business strategies for their long-term sustainability, even as they provide products and services to address the needs of their customers, their clients, and their communities. And that is why the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact are more relevant than ever. The principles cover human rights, labor, the environment, and the fight against corruption. They lay the foundation for strong and resilient businesses. More than 11,000 companies and 3,000 non-business participants of the Global Compact have made a commitment at the CEO level to embed the 10 principles in their business strategies and their operations. And as the pandemic lingers, these principles can help businesses maintain their standing in society and the business sector and guide them towards sustainable and purposeful recovery. For Africa, recovery has to proceed on many fronts. Some African economies had impressive GDP growth statistics pre-COVID, as well as plans to expand into manufacturing, while also growing their service sectors. These plans must get back on track. Meanwhile, as governments across Africa develop economic stimulus packages, they must deploy these funds inclusively, cognizant that the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises have suffered immense losses in terms of business closure and jobs. And finally, economic opportunities for women and youth must get priority, as they are often the backbone of micro and small enterprises. And we cannot miss out on the innovation and other benefits that will result from meaningful empowerment, employment for the largest generation of young people on the continent. The UN Global Compact encourages business leaders everywhere to join the movement for corporate responsibility across sectors and borders. By ensuring that profit is aligned with principles and purpose, we can unite in the business of a better world. In this spirit of international cooperation, I thank you for joining us to make the global goals local business. And now it is my honor to introduce the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed.
Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, business leaders, it is a pleasure to speak to you about uniting business for the Africa we want. Let me begin by thanking the United Nations Global Compact for convening such an impressive virtual event. This forum comes at a decisive moment in the effort to create a peaceful, prosperous future for the continent. We have two vital roadmaps to that future: the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Agenda 2063, the African Union's plan for inclusive progress. We have great potential to fulfill these ambitious agendas. Through bold initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, Africa has been pursuing rapid business development. Vast opportunities lie ahead. To sustain the momentum and overcome the unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, African societies, governments, financial institutions, and the private sector must work together to drive sustainable investment, maintain access to international markets, put the brakes on corruption, and strengthen support for small and medium-sized enterprises. We must invest sustainably in those that have been hardest hit, in poor and marginalized communities, thus leaving no one behind. The pandemic reminds us that our collective well-being depends on that of every fellow human being. The good news is that Africa has acted swiftly to respond to COVID-19, and the results are clear. It is one of the only regions where cases are declining, but we must not let down the guard. Member states of the African Union are pooling their negotiating power to buy rapid testing kits, N95 masks, ventilators, and other supplies directly from manufacturers. Through innovation and robust collaboration across borders, Africa is showing its strength. This bodes well for the decade of action on the Sustainable Development Goals between now and 2030. A resilient recovery from COVID-19 can re-energize Africa's economies, advance climate action, and accelerate transformation. The UN Global Compact has a key role to play in leveraging the partnerships and financing needed to make that happen. The Compact's local networks in particular are well positioned to translate global action into impact at the country level. I urge you to engage with them today as you discuss the business of uniting business for a better Africa and a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. And thank you as well to Sanda Ojambo for beginning that and for just putting into perspective the lessons from COVID-19, even as we move towards our journey of recovery and indeed towards the decade of action. And also Ms. Mohammed emphasizing the need to support SMEs and the marginalized communities as we go forward. The decade of action begins in just a few days now. And we are very invigorated and inspired by your words, ladies. Thank you very much. Next, we would like to hear now from Hannah Tete. She's the Secretary General's representative to the African Union and is also currently the Director General of the UN office in Nairobi. Now, as special representative, she is responsible for advancing and implementing UN goals at the African Union. Ms. Hannah Tete, welcome.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you at this Global Compact event Making Global Goals Local Business Africa, under the theme Uniting Business for the Africa We Want. This year we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, the 20th anniversary of the Global Compact, and the 5th anniversary of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's an opportunity to remind ourselves of the motivations behind the establishment of the Global Compact and the intent behind the agreement on the Sustainable Development Goals. All of these initiatives are focused on building a better world and looking at the impact of climate change and the governance, peace and security challenges that face us on the African continent. We need to recharge our efforts to make sure that the SDG targets are achieved. The SDGs focus on environmental sustainability and human development are the key areas that we all need to take into consideration in order to build back better, bearing in mind that business cannot succeed in a failing world. And the focus of the goals is to address those failures and shortcomings. From a business perspective, they can be considered as part of the framework to guide product development and investment to positively impact sustainable economic growth, given that the investments required to achieve the goals cannot be the responsibility of governments alone. The COVID pandemic has reminded us just how connected we are and the impact that actions in one part of the world can have on all of us. There have been severe consequences for public health and also for our economies. And again, to build back better, we need to focus on the sustainability principles applied to the core businesses and supply chains of the businesses that are present here today. Our continent has projected for itself grand ambitions in Agenda 2063 and aims to create the Africa we want, an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous continent. Next year, it is envisaged that trading under the Continental Free Trade Area will begin. However, to achieve our dreams of progress and prosperity, we also need to have peace, justice, and strong institutions to promote effective governance and the rule of law, built on the respect for human rights and inclusivity, to promote social stability in our multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multicultural societies. Africa does not need strong men. Africa needs strong institutions. And the partnership between government, business, civil society, and non-governmental organizations, our continental, regional, and sub-regional organizations, multilateral institutions, and development actors is critical to build the governance framework to create the Africa we want. The demonstration of ethical leadership and good governance through values-based strategies are key to addressing the fundamental development challenges that we need to overcome in order to have a prosperous continent. We cannot afford to go backwards. And that is the reason why this year's edition of the 2020 Ibrahim Index of Governance makes for sobering reading and challenges all of us to look at what we can do to ensure that we continue to move forwards and make progress. We need to focus on making the 10 principles of the Global Compact and the SDGs part of the framework that guides the growth and development of business across our continent. And that also means supporting the development of national, sub-regional, and regional value chains, recognizing that small and medium enterprises that are part of the supply chains of larger businesses require additional support through the provision of the requisite technical expertise and assistance to be able to apply the sustainability principles to their businesses as well. That will be key to integrating the global goals and making them local across Africa. We are coming out of the global health crisis, and with the development of vaccines, Finally, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We hope that the necessary efforts will be made to make these vaccines affordable and available across the world, and especially in Africa. We should use the recovery from this crisis as an opportunity to utilize the energy of entrepreneurship, the creativity, innovations, and adaptations that come from the quest to create sustainable products and services that are relevant to the needs of our people. We should encourage more trade and connectivity across the continent, create decent jobs, and provide opportunities for all, especially women and young people. And we must strengthen the engagement and cooperation between government, the private sector, and all key stakeholders to build the institutional foundations to create the Africa that we want. We can make this happen as we focus on building and strengthening our partnerships. I want to wish you all the best in your deliberations and trust that the takeaways from this meeting will develop inclusive, relevant, and sustainable, uniquely African solutions to achieve the global goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And indeed, you are absolutely right. Businesses cannot succeed in a failing world. And I like what you said, Hannah. Africa does not need strong men, it needs strong institutions. And Africa also needs important networks if we're to make global goals local business. And one of those that I mentioned to you earlier is the first such regional network, that's Mauritius and the Indian Ocean. And the person I want to introduce to you all next is a man who's a champion for small island sustainable development and poverty reduction. And he will be answering this very key question. What is the future of Africa and small island nations? Ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly welcome the Honorable Dr. Nganaden Padayachi. He is the Minister for Finance, Economic Planning and Development of Mauritius. Mr. Minister, Karibu Sana, welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me at the very outset thank the United Nations Global Compact for giving me the opportunity to participate in this forum. I wish to reiterate the firm commitment of Mauritius to the Agenda 2063. It is indeed a comprehensive action plan to realize the shared vision of a prosperous, peaceful, and dynamic continent. Whilst the COVID-19 pandemic has affected lives and livelihoods across the continent and the world, we must, more than ever, relentlessly work towards achieving our goals. Africa's Decade of Action is indeed a fitting means to drive our progress. To achieve these goals, it is clear that as a continent, we must set strong and effective foundations for public-private collaborations. It is a model that has worked very well in Mauritius, with a long tradition of dialogue on issues of national importance. We have seen the benefits of such dialogues not only to better focus our development efforts, but also to deal with unprecedented shocks such as the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, government and the private sector have worked together to come up with innovative measures such as the Work Access Permit and the Wage Assistance Scheme that have contributed significantly in mitigating the negative impact of the pandemic on the economy. Undoubtedly, government cannot realize Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals alone. For small island developing states like Mauritius, the role of public-private partnership and the support of international institutions is even more important. Here, I would like to invite African entrepreneurs to come and tap into the opportunities offered by Mauritius in various fields. Similarly, our private sector should optimize on the opportunities available at the continental level through regional groupings such as the COMESA and SADC, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area. The task ahead calls for even greater cooperation amongst countries across Africa. Let us together step up our efforts towards achieving the Agenda 2063. I thank you for your attention.
And thank you very much as well, Dr. Padeyachi, very strong championing for the small island nations, and also just pushing forward the great collaboration that we hope to see, public-private partnerships, and also with government and international actors. And that is what you will hear about throughout the day today. We'll be focusing on what everyone is doing in their respective fields and how we can all come back, even whilst working towards a global mission, but some of the strategies and responses that we must put in place locally towards this big goal that we have set up despite the setback of COVID-19, but obviously seeing that we have some great learning lessons from that pandemic, even as we start to think about what Africa will look like over the next 10 years, and even as we start to plan to build back better. Minister Padeyachi, we thank you very much for making the time for us and for your remarks. And just a reminder, I'm seeing quite a few of your tweets. Remember, the hashtag is Global Goals Local Business. And we have Kasapo Manda on Twitter. Just echoing what Hannah Tete said earlier, you say the investment needed to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063 cannot be left to governments alone. We need sustainable partnerships and value chains in order to build back better. That is absolutely correct. And now I want us to hear from our co-host of today's event. I'd like to welcome Ms. Nozipo January Bardil. She's a board chair for the Global Compact Local Network, South Africa. Ms. Bardil.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you, to Excellencies and all of the people in the audience. It's such a pleasure to have a voice on a platform like this, and of course speaking also not on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the entire board of the United Nations Global Compact in South Africa. We live in a country and a continent with a long legacy, as you all know, of slavery, of colonialism, and also of institutional racism, all of which systematically violated the majority of our people and their rights. And so when business throughout the world chose to boycott the apartheid state, they demonstrated their understanding that the private sector is doomed to fail in a sick society with repressive laws that subjugate and dehumanize its citizens. Our personal and professional, as well as our political commitment to justice, inequality, and peace is what drives many of us on the board of the Global Compact in South Africa. So that when Kofi Annan in 1999 at the WEF proposed that business leaders and we at the UN initiate a global compact of shared values and principles, which will give a human face to the global market, we were ready for that. We were ready for the compact, especially as we were only 5 years into our democratic country, newly democratic country. When the government of South Africa, through the Companies Act, made it a statutory requirement for listed companies to create social and ethics subcommittees on their boards, we, on the board of the Global Compact, agreed that we needed to support these subcommittees to integrate the social and ethical dimensions of good governance into company strategies. So socializing the SDGs and positioning them as a framework and a blueprint for business strategies has been a process that we have engaged in with many of our members, and in particular, now that we have been hit by this terrible by COVID. If you recall, South Africa was the first signatory of the 2015 global goals when they were adopted at the UN. They came into force in this country in 2016. We can also lay claim to the fact that we are the home of the King Commission and its principles on ethical and responsible governance. Both these frameworks have been central to the way in which we have dealt and supported our businesses. Many companies here have embraced the King 4 framework for responsible and ethical businesses, and the institution has become a friend of the Global Compact. We are, of course, also guided by the rights-based constitution of the South African, in the South African environment, our National Development Plan, the Agenda 2063, and of course, the global goals. They too are aligned with all of the efforts to end poverty, to fight inequality, and to tackle climate change through advocating for a strong commitment to the SDGs. The pandemic has amplified inequalities in our country, like has been said before, and the continent, but it has inspired us to target more audacious aspirations that utilize the human capital of our rich continent and the young people who are in the demographic of this vast continent. We trust that the young people of our countries, the young people of our continent, will actually be the next leaders of our businesses. I think our experience so far demonstrates that they are more committed to social business, to doing business for social purposes and for shared value than simply for profit. And in that regard, we have so much faith in them, and that is the reason why the Global Compact locally and on the continent is doing excellent work with young people in our businesses. So having said all that, I wish all of us on the call successful attempts to make these global goals local, to domesticate them to fit our own local conditions, but also to make sure that together we can achieve an Africa which promises our young people a much more prosperous future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bardil, for that. And thank you very much for hosting us here today. We're looking forward to hearing much more about how the local networks are working together. Now, another key sector is the private sector, and it'll definitely be very important in the next decade of action if businesses can align with SDGs. And I think it's important to have shared value where businesses are not just all about making profits, but that they're wary of the communities in which they thrive and ensuring that we're all thriving together. So it's about profits, but it's also about sustainability. It's also about the continent. It's about issues like climate change and where we hope to see ourselves. As we said in the beginning, Ms. Hannah Tete said, business cannot succeed in a failing world. And that's why we're looking forward to hear from the private sector. Now, some of the key questions are, what are the common development challenges across the continent, and how will the private sector players in Africa respond to them? It's now time for our first plenary session here today. And for that, I want to hand you over to Ms. Achieng Ojwang, who's the Executive Director of Global Compact Network, South Africa. Achieng.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yvonne, and to the honorable speakers for already setting the scene. My name is Achieng Ojwang from Network South Africa, and very privileged this morning to facilitate the CEO fireside chat. The CEOs will give us insights on the role of the private sector for the decade of action, also giving us very, very practical examples on how they are positioning, using their own influence as CEOs and positioning their companies to contribute to the decade of action. We have 30 minutes for this panel discussion, and I would like now to introduce the speakers as they come in. We have Bramin Benjelloun Tuimi, who is the Group Executive Managing Director and Chairman of the Board of Bank of Africa Group, Morocco. We also have with us Phyllis Wakiaga, CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And our third panelist is Celestine Mukeba, CEO of Equity Bank Congo and Chair of the Global Compact Network in the DRC. So welcome, all of you. So before we start, I'm going to ask that as we deliberate on this session, to also take a moment and reflect back on the key points that have come up from all the keynote speakers. We've heard about opportunities in the continent, the need for innovation, for collaboration, and for partnerships on the SDGs. So based on those insights from the previous speakers, I'm going to ask the same question applying to all of you. And I will start, of course, with Brahim. Based on those insights from the previous speakers, please give us your reflections on how you think the private sector is well positioned to achieve the SDGs in the continent. And in your answer, please try and indicate why you are personally committed as a CEO to contribute to the Africa that we want. Mr. Brahim.
Thank you very much, Ching. Thank you. And thank you for inviting us as Bank of Africa. Indeed, the role of the private sector will be even, I would say, of paramount importance in the future. Development of the continent post-pandemic is even more relying on the convergence of forces between the private sector, the public, the DFIs, the NGOs. We have the chance, if I may say, to have a kind of a global or a world governmental program that the SDGs represent. How could we, post-pandemic, not think that every single of the 17 SDGs represent a goal that we can achieve, and we can achieve by making business out of it? And this is very important to tell the private sector that the path will be profitable. And we can even be more contributing to the SDGs if we remain profitable. It's very important. So I even think that in the word business, the last three letters refer to environmental, social, and sustainability. So the three letters of business. So very important indeed, our contribution. For our part, partnership is key. It's this SDG 17. We partner with the DFIs. It was one of them, the British one is in our shareholdership, with the EIB, European Investment Bank, with the EBRD, with the bilateral DFIs like the French AFD, with the German KfW, to promote some of the SDGs through, for example, the seventh one, energy, the clean energy, the clean water, the consumption and production, responsible consumption production, through very concrete projects, financing projects like wind farms, desalination projects, waste management projects, energy efficiency. So I don't want to monopolize the podium, but I would like to say, why am I personally committed? I think that it is very important. We have a chairman who is the majority shareholder, and he has placed corporate social responsibility at the heart of our strategy. That's why we are rated extra financially by a subsidiary, if I may say, of Moody's called Vigeo. So as a deputy CEO, as a leader, it's very important to give signals. And the fact that we have adhered to the Global Compact, the fact that in 2000 we already signed the declaration of UNEP-FI, the fact that we are so much committed is not only a political signal, but it's a very concrete signal within the organization that we can, at the same time, make good. We can make good to the community and at the same time derive money, derive profit out of it. Here again, we have to talk to the private sector, telling them it's not absolutely not antinomic to make money and at the same time do good. This is one of the first reflections, but of course, I give the floor to the others, and I'm ready to of course, elaborate on these ideas.
Thank you. I think very incredible to hear that the SDGs are driven straight, directly from your board, with board and chair support. Over to you, Phyllis, your insights on the role of the private sector and your personal motivation for this. Phyllis? Phyllis, are you with us? I have given over the platform to you. Can you please give us your insights on why the private sector is well positioned to drive the SDGs? Okay, it looks like Phyllis is not hearing me. Can I move over to Celestine and then we can come back to Phyllis in a moment?
Thank you very much for giving us opportunity of joining this wonderful forum. And on behalf of the Global Compact Network DRC, we would like to say thank you and even to encourage such initiative. So as far as we are concerned as private sector, myself, I think we've been highly involved in supporting the implementation of the UN Global Compact in DRC, because we truly believe that the private sector has a very key role to play in promoting the agenda of SDGs in the continent. We know that the continent is, of course, confronted with different challenges of different orders. I would say hunger. We have some pandemic diseases, and some diseases are endemic. We are very working in an environment which is very, very difficult and very challenging. There are some governance issues. I think involving the private sector in such a manner of implementing the SDG goals is one of the key elements, and it's very, very crucial for the development of our continent, and even for the promotion of our I would say our economies. So as far as we are involved, I would say as private sector actor, we are operating in a bank. I think the bank is between the carrefour of businesses. I think we can see different businesses across the continent, even across our country. We by engaging them and involving them in implementing those SDGs, I think it's something very, very crucial. It's aligned with our global agenda. We can really make the global goal local businesses while we implement those partnerships that Ibrahim has mentioned. As far as the bank is concerned, we are in interactions with all different organizations, international donors. We have financial institutions of development like KfW, the European Union. So we are interconnected with those ones to push this agenda. I would like maybe to bring another dimension, which is very critical for us, is that we don't need to see SDGs only in the sense of corporate social responsibility manner, but in our case, we have embedded the social responsibilities or SDGs as part of our strategy, as part of our vision. For example, in the bank where we run, we have put ourselves as a vision of being the champion of transformation of social economic prosperity of African populations. So by putting such a vision as one of the key area, one of the focus area, so we are offering inclusive services which addresses SMEs, which addresses those businesses in implementing or in engaging with such a level of, I would say, in embracing those initiatives.
No, I cannot hear, but just hang on, just stay there, go. When they talk to me, we'll
the
see.
SDGs, I would say. So just to say that these initiatives of engaging on the SDGs or pushing the agenda of development is very,
it's fine.
very key for businesses. I would say that without the involvement of the private sector, it will be difficult because the private sector is controlling 80% of the economies in some countries. So engaging them in this agenda is the way to promote development and to push us to reach that agenda. This is in a nutshell what I wanted to do to comment as an introduction, but we will dig deeper when we will talk about other dimensions.
Thank you very much, and really for highlighting the power of the private sector. If you are sitting with 80% of the economy, it means you're a critical partner in really ensuring that the development components of the country are met. Phyllis, I hope that you can hear me now, and we will now come to you with that same question. And allow me to repeat it because there's quite a bit of a disturbance there. I would like you to give us your insights and reflections on why you think the private sector is well positioned to drive the SDGs in the African continent. The second part of that question is that I'd like you to then indicate what really personally commits you or motivates you as a CEO to contribute to the Africa that we want.
Thank you very much for the questions, Chieng, and very interesting listening to the opening remarks. I think it was very clear that for the sustainable recovery from COVID-19, we need to really accelerate development of homegrown solutions to address this issue. And this is quite critical because for the recovery from the crisis, we need to use the crisis as an opportunity to develop and really leverage on the sustainable development of products in the African continent. So the private sector will play a critical role, not just for the COVID recovery, but also around the SDGs. If you look at the aspirations under the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, there's a big focus on inclusive growth and sustainable development, which are really linked to the sustainable development goals. And for driving this, the private sector is really at the heart of it. And the sector I represent, which is the manufacturing sector, will really play a critical role in driving inclusive, sustainable growth and also creating productive jobs. If you listened also to some of the remarks at the beginning, just to tie into my response, was the issue that there's need for more trade and connectivity across Africa. And this trade and connectivity will be happening in partnership with, I guess, the private sector ensuring that they're producing and able to create value chains in the continent that are moving goods around the continent. At a personal level, what I have been really is a change agent. What I try to do is to influence the growth of my country, the continent, and industries, and also at the same time drive youth empowerment and women empowerment. I have a big vision to see things done differently, and it's really informed the direction I've taken. And even within the COVID pandemic, I'm still very optimistic about the future. And some of the specific work I've done is really around the sustainable manufacturing practices in Kenya, a strong advocate for the adoption of critical tenets of sustainable development and green growth within the manufacturing sector. And as an association, we have worked very closely with industry to promote the efficient utilization of energy and also driven conservation activities, as well as waste management initiatives. We're also doing a lot in terms of youth empowerment, supporting small and medium businesses, and also working with women through a program we've established called the Women in Manufacturing within the association. So that's a personal role I'm playing around this work. Thanks, Aching.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. I think incredible to hear and to be reassured once again on the role of manufacturing in the development direction of the continent. But I think also extremely important is the opportunities that are being brought about by the integration of the continent, the free trade area agreement that is coming into force pretty soon. I'd like us now to move to the next question, and I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Benjamin Twemi, to give us more ideas, really, and try as much as possible to draw some practical examples as well. And also in this process, also to think to the future. The SDGs are about action now, but they are also quite futuristic. So how can business catalyze sustainable transformation that is able to drive systemic change in the continent? Brahim.
Thank you, Acheng. Well, the banking sector and financiers have a key role in this regard, because they are, I would say, they say in French, le nerf de la guerre. I think to that intent, we should talk to financiers by telling them, as I said earlier, that the transformation of the sustainability is something where they will find also the heart of their purpose, which are, when they are private and for profit, they will find profitability. It's very important to have to hold such language. I think at the same time that this finance should be long-term, it should be patient capital, it should be ethical based, and I will illustrate that. It should be agile, i.e. that technology and banks and financiers use a lot of technology. It should be in forward-looking, more digitalized, so that to go beyond the physical borders and contribute to this integration within the continent. It should be inclusive, i.e. Pan-African institutions like ours should be universal, should continue to being universal and not target only a kind of customers. We are at the service of SMEs, of very small enterprises, of professional, of private customers, of corporate. We should be also, finance and banking should be blended finance, i.e. this conversions of actors from the multilateral, from the bilateral financial institution, from the state with guarantees, and from the private sector should lead to a finance where you will find technical assistance. In order to have this transformation, if, for example, we have witnessed a big success in energy efficiency because there was technical assistance, thanks to grant by the European Union. We advised our customers to hold audits in their energy efficiency so that the financial product helped, was, if I may say, was legitimized. It's very important that grants, concessional loans, at the same time, technical assistance, advisory services, all this be compounded in a product offered by bankers on a kind of one-stop shop. Bankers, you will tell to the retail bankers, you do sell these products, and in this product, you will find in it technical assistance, advisory services, and money. And it doesn't, I would say, we don't mind who is behind, who will be assuming technical assistance, who will be giving the money, etc. It's very important. And this trust of bankers is very important to keep, because they are keeping this intimate relationship with their customers. So this finance, as I said, long-term, patient, we should not be short-sighted, long-term, impact and ethical centered, agile through digitalization, essentially, inclusive, as I said, and blended. And we should be promoting by keeping in mind, and then I will illustrate, I'm sorry, I have not done it yet. It should promote green and blue finance. Water is key. Climate finance will be key in the future, essentially, and the health security is becoming, with this pandemic, something key, as much as important as food. So how are we as a private sector? But we started by the annual report. We have a sustainable development report where we put in front of the big, I would say, figures, what are the SDGs which are concerned? We are undertaking an integrated approach to report of our activities. So it's a way to show that we, private sector, we can also contribute to the SDGs. And of course, as I said earlier, we are part either individually as a bank or in consortium in these very important projects, which I said are promoting clean energy or clean water or irrigation, desalination, as I said, responsible consumption and production, the 7, 6, and 12 SDGs, that are all the others that we are indirectly contributing to, like the 17 partnership. So here again, we should think of also by being Pan-African like we are contributing to this integration of the continent. Because when you are normalizing or adapting standards for many countries at the same time, when you are mutualizing some functions throughout countries in the region, when you are having a holding in West Africa or trying to address the southeast of Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, but through a mutualized holding, you are at the same time helping a kind of financial integration. And financial integration is part of the overall economic. Thank you.
I appreciate your really deep insights. I want to go to Celestine because you both come from the same sectors, banking. Celestine, how can business, catalyze sustainable transformation from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chenge. I would say that yeah, we are in a very critical moment, especially after COVID, where the economy can take a huge opportunity to raise up, because after each crisis, there are still opportunities which lies there. And since we are in a decade of actions for our continent, so I think the private sector and companies can play a bigger role, especially in catalyzing, being the catalyst of the change and the transformation of Africa. As far as the bank we are concerned, so one of the key area that we are looking at is to push the digitalization as one of the agenda, because we know for sure that Africa has a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure, in terms of development, how to reach the next level, how to reach the next miles of development. It's only with solution of digitalization and solution of innovation, very innovative product, which can unleash opportunity for companies in Africa. So that is the first area. As far as, for example, the bank is concerned, I would say that currently we are impacting 14 million of Africans, and we plan to impact 100 million in the next 6 years to come. So that would be possible by promoting digital solution, digital platform. And we are launching very inclusive product, which help to bank the entire ecosystem, and even in Africa, that will be very useful. And being a regional actor, which is covering the eastern part of the continent and the central part of the continent, so we are speaking about more than 380 million people who can be impacted if we do our things right, as I'm saying, in terms of inclusion. So we would like to promote and to support SMEs, because SMEs represent the faces of those Africans who are really entrepreneurs and who are engaging and who represent the value chains of corporates. So by supporting those SME, mainly youth and women, I think it will be a good way to be the champions of socio-economic prosperity of our continent. So what's another dimension that we brought is that we just changed the way of looking at SDGs completely. For us, it's not part of social responsibility actions, but it's embedded in our DNA as an institution, embedded in our DNA, because we have set, for example, as our mission to be providing inclusive services which unleash opportunities for creation of wealth to our partners, to our customer. So it's another dimension of looking at those opportunities. I think being a very regional actor, that will be very impactful for promoting the SDG agenda. Another dimension is that we would like to promote green finance. I think it has been covered very briefly by my colleague. Green finance, it will be pushing companies to adopt, since we know for sure Africa is in lack of electricity, in lack of power. So while we would like to promote such a development, but it would be good to invest immediately in the green, for example, the green energy immediately, instead of, start with something which can destroy the environment. And another thing that we would like to push to promote using our impact in the region is to promote as well financial literacy program, financial education, so that we can really promote the development. So I think using our position as a regional player, we can have a tremendous role to play as a private sector, and push as well. By ourselves implementing very high standard in terms of governance, we can be the lead. I think this is what we've tried to implement in the DRC by being a top model company which shows the way for others to follow. I think, yeah, that is in a nutshell what we can bring.
I think you bring a really, really important point about governance as an enabler and as a driving force. Phyllis, you come, with a very diverse group of companies, large and small. Give me your view quickly before we go to the next question on how your membership can catalyze sustainable transformation.
My fellow panelists have covered quite a lot, but one of the key things is for businesses to see how they can embrace sustainability in their operations. This way, just ensuring that within their strategic plans, they have crafted objectives to fit the vision of sustainability. The other one that's critical is around governance. I think you spoke about the fact that governance and strong institutions will also be critical. One of the things we have done, because we represent a cross-sector of businesses within the manufacturing sector in Kenya, is work very closely and driven partnerships with the government to identify where we are in terms of SDGs. So early this year, we launched an SDG readiness report. And what it was a policy and legislative institutional review of the 17 SDGs in Kenya. And we did it together with the Office of the Deputy President in Kenya and the Global Compact Network in Kenya. Why a report like this is useful, and I think is something that can be done across the continent, is that it sheds light on the readiness from a legislative perspective to implement the SDGs. And it also highlights some of the challenges that we will face as a country or as a continent as we implement, and also comes up with practical recommendations that need to be put in place to ensure that we attain SDGs within this decade of action. And it also looks at which partners need to work together around this. So from an African perspective, that is something that I think the report can be a useful platform across the continent and ensure that the continent is working together towards meeting the goals. Thank you, Aching.
Thank you very much. Panelists, we have just over 1 minute remaining. I want to ask one final question and give it a quick stab. We know that sustainability decisions should be made for the long term. And planning for the long term is difficult because of the uncertainty that is entailed there. How would you defend your choice for a sustainable business model, Mr. Brahmin?
We have to invent a sustainable business model, and defend it is to instill in every act of management, at every single of hierarchy, at the level of the board, through the specialized committees, the governance, through our reporting, that we have to measure financially and extra financially, we have to have metrics for the impact of every single financing that we have. We should make of it something normal, business as usual. I even often advise my colleagues to say that, apart from any philosophical or any, I would say, political conviction, we should make out of it just business to be sure that bankers and financiers will embark on, so that they will consider doing something as usual as anything else. This is how we see it.
Thank you. I'll move on to Phyllis. How would you defend this long-term thinking around sustainability through the business model?
From where I sit, sustainable investing is about really investing in progress and recognizing that the companies that will really grow are those that solve the biggest problems that we have in the world. So it's really about seeing how we pioneer a better way of doing business and how we make our businesses more responsive so that even the youth are able to opt into the future we are looking at by being part of the innovation. And I think also sustainability is about going beyond just innovating products, but also building sustainable business models. That's a critical thing around sustainability so that these businesses can be resilient, they can endure for a long time into the future. And also aspiring to bring and live the purpose of the company and really have that driven through the employees and the consumers and carrying everyone along this sustainability journey, all the stakeholders. So that for me is what sustainable investment and really a sustainable business into the future will look like.
Awesome. Celestine, your last shot at this, how would you defend?
Thank you very much. I think as the other colleagues have said, sustainable business is very, very good for us. As I was saying, that it's embedded in our DNA. So we have changed the way to look at sustainable, responsible businesses. So I would say that it's embedded in our DNA, in our way of operating, and it's not costly as people would tend to think. The cost of maintenance, the cost of repairing the planet, who can evaluate that? Who can evaluate the damage which is conducted? It's more costly to repair than to be acting in a manner which prevents things to go in the wrong direction. I would say we have changed our equation. We have changed the way we consider things. We would like to promote those businesses which are very sustainable for resilience, as we said, and even it sounds to be very, very profitable, I would say. If we invest in this, we need to be more innovative so that we make it cost effective for ourselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity. That brings us to the end of this first panel. We've had so many enabling things and how issues around finance, long-term planning, ethical technology, inclusiveness, digital transformation will lead us to the outcomes that we need, not forgetting partnerships, regional integration, and so many other factors that we have to take into account. So I want to take this moment to thank you very much for being with us this morning. Thank you. Over back to Yvonne, I think.
Thank you very much, Ching, for that and some of the important lessons that we have learned from your high-level dialogue panel. It's been such a pleasure hearing from them on sustainable business models beyond just innovating products. And there's quite a bit that is happening, and many of you posting this even on the chat group. And so I want to thank you very much for that as well. Keep doing that. I see many of you introducing yourselves, where you're from and your businesses. That's what this is about, trying to make sure we create as great an experience for you to network. So please continue to going to that tab on the left and visit all our content studios, our sponsor booths. And remember, you can chat directly with each other. And if you'd like, there's a sort of speed networking. If you feel that's fun enough, please go ahead and do that. And remember, the hashtag on social media is Global Goals Local Business. So keep doing that. I just want to take a look at one message here from Ines Ferguson, who says SDGs means business, not just philanthropy. You totally agree with Mr. Mukeba. Indeed, SDGs and the principles of shared value is not just about philanthropy or simply, CSR, but it goes a lot more than that. And even Mr. Mukeba saying it's not as costly as we might imagine. So now we've gotten a sort of global view of where we want to go ahead with this. And now we'd like to get down to some specifics. And it's time for our breakout sessions now. And we have 3 sessions. So first we'll be talking about youth and innovation. And we'll be seeing young people who are taking the lead in developing new business models. And then we've also got the climate action session. And we'll be taking a look at what urgent climate needs need to happen in Africa for a sustainable continent. And this is for generations to come. And then finally, there's the gender equality session. And we're looking at realizing women's full participation in leadership and in business towards making sure that it's more inclusive and that we're leaving nobody behind. And the breakout tabs are on the left hand of your screen, so just remember that. And I'd like to give you a reminder that the breakout sessions will take exactly 1 hour. And so we hope that you can keep time, and we'll see you back here in exactly 1 hour from now. Enjoy the breakout sessions and stay with us here. We'll be looking forward to seeing you on the other side of that.